What about the idea of free won't as opposed to free will? This comes from Matthew Hentrich. Free won't is this idea that I believe Michael Shermer used in his recent book, The Moral Arc. But it comes from Benjamin Libet. And I'm sorry, I never know whether he pronounced his name Benjamin Libet or Benjamin Libet. He's no longer alive to consult, and I only ever see it written. But I'm going to go with Libet. Benjamin Libet, who famously gave us some early neurophysiological results on the topic of free will using EEG, and who showed that you could predict a person's motor response some hundreds of milliseconds, up to half a second before they were consciously aware of having intended to do something. He then came forward with this idea of free won't, that though free will was difficult to justify in light of these results, he thought that we have veto power and could cancel an action at the last minute, and that this offered some freedom. And I believe he published this first in the Journal of Consciousness Studies. I would have to look, but I recall reading a paper from him on this topic. This never made any sense at all to me, because whatever the neurological precursors are of the veto, those too are being kindled and made effective by processes which no one is conscious of. Now, I don't think Libet ever did an experiment looking for the timing difference there between when one is conscious of one's veto and when it's actually kindled. But surely there's a time difference there. And again, even if there weren't, this is often a misunderstanding about my argument against free will. It's not just that there's a time difference. It's not just that there is a period where neurophysiologically we can detect an intention or a motor plan, and then this only becomes conscious some hundreds of milliseconds later. Even if we were conscious at the first instant of this plan arising in the brain, or of the veto arising in the brain, its mere arising in that moment is also inscrutable. It's also compatible with a total lack of free will. The time lag is slightly more inconvenient for anyone who wants to argue for free will, because what it demonstrates is that there is a period where you still think you're free to make up your mind, where you still think you are making up your mind, where you still think you have not decided what you will do, and yet what you will do is, in a very real sense, determined by the state of your brain at that moment. And this must be true to some degree with any veto of a motor plan. But again, I think in a deep sense, the illusoriness of free will is not dependent on any gap there between the arising of the intention and its conscious execution. So I hope that was clear. I don't think free won't gives you any more freedom than the more common notion of free will. But of course, it's also a fact about the human mind. We veto various intentions from time to time. We intend to do something, we're about to reach for it, we're about to say something, and then we think better of it, and we cancel that plan. But again, the moments where you do that, just pay attention. That is inscrutable. You can't actually account for why you do it in that moment, or why it's effective in that moment, why you do it precisely at the moment you do it. I mean, it's all being pushed forward into consciousness by processes of which you are not conscious and which you did not bring into being. I think there's another question about free will coming up, and perhaps I'll go over that ground again for anyone who's mystified.